So I'm currently reading The Magic of Mushrooms by Sandra Lawrence. This is for my Wild Ones book club, so I won't review it here, but it is amazing. I will show you some of the pictures inside. It is absolutely stunning, and I am loving it to bits and pieces. But I will talk about this book in the reading blog. The reason why I sometimes can't do my work. Someone's sitting in my chair. Hello and welcome to this week's reading vlog. I've included The Magic of Mushrooms, entries that I was meant to put in last week's vlog but totally forgot. So that was from last week and it's not adding to this week's count of books, but I read a total of this many books this week. Please excuse the bad dates. Sylvie got out of the house and I had to pick her up and she absolutely clawed the ever-loving shit out of me. So that's what's happening here. But without much further ado, let's take a look at what I did read this week. Hello, so I just finished reading City of Dragons, The Awakening Storm by Jaimal Yogis and Vivian Truong. I think it's well done for a middle grade graphic novel. It was a fun time, so I don't rate these anymore, but if I were to rate it, I'd probably give it a 3.5, 4. The next book that I'm going to pick up is most likely The Shallows, How the Internet is Changing the Way We Think, Read and Remember by Carr. If I don't read this one, I will most likely read A Master of Sorrow. So it depends. Do I want to go nonfiction? Do I want to go fiction? We'll have to wait and see. So Blue crawled inside this empty packet of kitty litter. All the way in. Hey, Blue? Are you going to come out now? Are you going to come out now? Just decided to crawl in, make herself a home in the kitty litter. Sometimes I have caught her just sitting all the way down in the kitty litter trays, just having a rest. Okay, so I just finished reading The Shallows by Carr. There's Sylvie in the background. This is about how technology, especially the internet, has changed the way we think, read and remember. So for me, this was definitely overly padded. Book did not need to be this thick. For example, if you ask someone, how did my parents meet? And they go on to tell you how your parents, grandparents met and then work their way up. And it's sort of like, well, I didn't need to know that much history. Like I just want to know how they met. We don't need to go way back when. Or for instance, if you want to know the theory of why the world is round, like how we discovered the world is round, and he's going back to how people thought the world was flat and discussing all of those theories. And it's just, in that case, like you're learning obsolete information. In regards to, for instance, neuroplasticity, instead of just talking about neuroplasticity, he's going back to how we used to think that the brain was fixed and that adult brains couldn't create more neurons and pathways and change. So it's like, well, I don't need to know these theories that are now debunked. To sum this up, the main points is that they believe that the internet, like the way that we can search for information and the way that information is delivered to us, is making our attention span like this big. And so people are struggling to read. He believes that everyone is just skim reading these days, just finding the pertinent bits of information, discarding the rest, and no one has the concentration skills that we used to have. And I'm like, I don't know. He even talks about how people can't even read books anymore. They all want to do e-readers, and e-readers have like hyperlinks. You don't even read the book. You just click on the links and you go down the rabbit hole into like your attention being diverted continuously. And I'm like, that's just not true. I don't know how other people feel. But then again, I'm not someone that really consumes a lot of media. Perhaps maybe it's things like TikTok and Instagram that have those quick, short, very attention-grabbing things. Maybe that changes the way, but I don't believe it's the internet in general has changed my attention span. For instance, I grew up with the internet and I'm still a voracious reader. I prefer still paperbacks over ebooks, but when I read an ebook, I'm not clicking on the hyperlinks. I'm not getting distracted. I'm reading the ebook and I read. I only skim if a book is terrible and I just want to get to the end. So I don't really necessarily agree with all the information. Maybe yes, people's attention spans have changed in that they need a high level of stimulation to retain their interest. But I don't believe that's the case for everybody. Yeah, this really needed to be edited down too. I can see that his brain is just going from one thing to another, to another, to another. And it's like, mate, like go back to the main thing that you were talking about. How have you gone on this crazy divergent path? So in this book, I felt like he could have used he needed to be more concise. Like this needs to be more concise. Yeah, I don't feel like books are dead. Personally, I don't think we're going to ever not have physical books anymore. I think as human beings, we're still very tactile, and this is a tactile experience. It has scent, it has texture, it has sound. Maybe we are getting better at filtering extraneous information that is not valuable to us, and our brains are functioning a little bit differently. But I don't know, I don't feel like we've all got ADD. I think that some people do, and their attention spans maybe are short, but not all of us, and we've all grown up with the same tech and exposures. So I don't know, it wasn't as great as I was hoping. It wasn't really that amazing. Just the way it was written, like I said, it really needed to be cut way down. I'm really not in favor of books being long just for length's sake. If a book is 100 pages but it's got amazing content, I love it. Like, I rate content here, and I rate the length of books like way down low. The shorter the better, maybe. Maybe it's my attention span, but yeah, I don't want to read unnecessary fluff. Like, shave the poodle down to its essentials, basically. So that was the Shallows. And I'm probably going to hit up my e-reader to see what I've got on there and pick one of those books next, and I'll catch you for that one. So I just started reading Master of Sorrows, and it was about a world where there's gods, and there's like old gods, and there's a child who ends up being the reincarnation, little kitten, of one of the old evil gods. And I read 53 pages, and I'm going to put it down. It started off strong with a very violent scene of the murder of the woman who birthed the child, but fast forward to when the child is 17, his name is Anev, and don't like his character, and I can tell this book is going to be slow. It is over 500 pages, and we're already 50 pages in and nothing's really happened. So I can see too that it's quite dense. It's just a dense read, and I'm not in the mood for it. So I think I'm going to DNF it, and I'm going to move on to Emily Wilde's Encyclopaedia of Faeries, because I have that from the library and I cannot renew it. And I'm actually really looking forward to a bit of a lighter magical fantasy book. Hello, so I thought I'd update you on my progress. I'm just over halfway with Emily Wilde's Encyclopaedia of Faeries, and I have mixed feelings. I won't say much, but I will just say that it is finally starting to pick up. It is quite slow to get off the ground, and the writing is not my favorite, but I like the story. I'm a sucker for fae, and I'm also a sucker for scientists, so it's got both. But I will let you know what I think of it when I finish it. I have a feeling I will definitely finish it today, so I will give you my review. I am currently getting ready to go and meet my girlfriend for brunch, so I'm very excited because I haven't seen her in forever. And I'm excited also to go and eat a meal out. I haven't done that in a while. But I'm looking forward. I will bring you along. Hopefully the food is good. When I come home, I will be finishing this and giving you my update. As far as the cats go, so much success, great success. Blue and Sylvie actually slept together today. I'll put a little clip in after this so you can see. So I am very, very excited about that, and very happy to be able to let her out of the house all the time, even if I'm not home. I left her the other day with the girls and all was well. So it's been a long, I think 2 weeks, but I'm at that point now where everyone's pretty much getting along. I'd say Willow is still the last one to board the blue train. Does for the most part just leave her be. It's just occasionally she will get hissy in her face or give her a chase, but nothing severe, no batting or biting or anything like that. She sort of gives up the goose pretty quick. Hello, so I've just finished reading the book. I have a cat on me. Big stretch. I think I'm going to give it 3.5 stars. Oh, now you're getting off. Okay, so I think I'm going to give it 3.5 stars. This is about Emily Wilde, who is an academic, and her field of expertise are the fae, or the folk. She definitely feels like she's neurodivergent, so she finds it difficult to read social cues, She likes things stated plainly and clearly so she can understand what people are saying and what they want. And she's very hyper fixated, obviously, on the Fae. That's her area of expertise, and she sort of is just immersed in that and not quite aware of everything else going around her. Then you've got Wendell, who is her former academic rival and love interest. He was great. I knew straight away what the twist with his character was. In regards to their romance, it is incredibly slow burn. By the end of the book, he has pretty much just kissed her cheek and her hand in terms of physical intimacy. So this book does continue on. The biggest issue I had was the pacing. This book is just over 300 pages, and yet it feels a lot longer than that. This is the size of the font, and at the bottom of the page, sometimes you have little notes that you can read, which is cute, which was a cute addition. It was very slow. Pretty much at the 3/4 mark was when it finally started to pick up and get interesting. I feel like hopefully that was a big thing. It was just too slow paced. The writing also, it isn't for me. It's very dense. It is very overly packed. It also makes it feel more tedious to get through. So it's not the best. It does feel like a period, like a historical piece because of the writing, even though I don't think it's meant to be a period piece. I'll have to check that later. But those were the biggest issues. As far as the plot goes, once again, it sort of picked up pace at the end. This is more vibes than plot. So you've got a lot of it set in a very snowy, Nordic kind of place, a lot of woodland and wood burning fires and that sort of thing. It is really PG. I wish there were more of the folk rather than just Emily sort of bumbling about interviewing people. It could have been condensed. I feel like it should have been shorter than it was, and it would have helped with the pace and made it more interesting. So there were bits where it was quite dull, and I found myself wanting to skim, but I didn't. So it did take me quite a long time to read because, once again, the writing and the pacing, it was slow going. There were some queer romances in this, which I thought was great, and one of those characters was my favorite. I won't say who it is because it's sort of like a surprise. In terms of the Fae, I thought it was cool, the different depictions they had. They didn't really have a lot of different Fae though. So I wish there had been more encounters with different types of Fae so you could see all the different things. They were talked about a lot, theoretically, like other Fae that they had discovered, but they weren't actually, you didn't meet them in this particular book. I also was sort of frustrated a bit by Emily, and I think that's because she's too similar to me. So I don't think she's like the best main character to have. For instance, I myself am a hermit. I am neurodivergent. I have hyperfixations. I don't like to really leave my house and interact with other human beings. I much prefer just to be invisible, especially in social situations. I'd rather just be in a corner minding my own business, observing rather than interacting with anybody. And for that reason, I don't want to read about a character who is doing exactly the same thing. Obviously, towards the end of the book, where things picked up plot-wise and there was more action, she sort of did more. But yeah, for me personally, I prefer to read about characters that are very different from myself. It sort of just made it a bit more dull because I'm like, she's basically me. And the love aspect in this wasn't amazing. I didn't really feel a lot of the attraction. To be honest, I wish there had been maybe a bit more banter and flirtatiousness, especially from Wendell, who is quite flirtatious and a bit of a cad. He wasn't really that way with Em, just a little bit. Em was just, a bit too much of a cold fish for me to read about as a main character. She needs a bit more colour. She's a bit too monotone. Another thing that frustrated me was how everyone treated Maud, and I think it was Auslag. A lot of the names are similar, so I might have gotten that confused. That is the couple who have the changeling child. They sort of just left them to suffer alone. So that was a bit shocking. I thought this village, who by all intents and purposes is supposed to be very close-knit and to band around each other and to help each other, really left this couple on their own to fend for themselves in despair and torment with this changeling. Yeah, I am giving it 3.5. Look, if it wasn't for the fact that its subject matter was Fae, which is one of my favorites, I probably wouldn't have liked it as much, but because I love the Fae, this was fine. But yeah, would I continue reading? I don't think so. I don't think I'm going to read the next one. It just wasn't interesting enough. I'm not invested in the couple. The world building was kind of cool, but I need more than that. I need more than cool subject matter and world building. I need good writing and interesting characters and great pacing and an exciting plot. Like I said, some stuff did happen at the end of this book, right at the end. That's not enough for me to have 300 pages and to only have exciting things happen right at the end and to have it take so long to read. Glad, to be honest, I was going to buy this because I absolutely adore the cover with the mushrooms and it sounded fantastic, but I'm kind of glad that I didn't because 3.5 stars is not a book that I would keep in my library. I am kind of disappointed. This was definitely on my anticipated reads of this year list and it just didn't quite hit. I enjoyed my time with it, but it took longer than I would want a book to take of such a short length, and it just didn't have enough. It was almost there, but not quite. So that was Emily Wilde's Encyclopaedia of Faeries. What am I going to read next? Well, I think I've got The Inside Story, which is a nonfiction that I borrowed from the library, so I'll probably read that. Think happy thoughts, guys. So I finished reading The Inside Story by Susan Sands, which is The Surprising Pleasures of Living in an Aging Body. So I am giving this 3.5 stars. I always round up on Goodreads, so on Goodreads I'll give it a 4. Hey Sylvie, please don't knock it over. This book is very women-centric, and they talk about interoception and body acceptance and embodiment and how to really be in your body and accept your body and embrace it and take care of it. This book is not about trying to look 50 when you're 70 or 30 when you're 50. It's about forging a healthier relationship with your actual maturing body, a relationship of respect, appreciation, tenderness, and yes, even love. So I'm not the target audience for this. It's mostly geared towards women who are over 50, but I still enjoyed reading it. They definitely talk about how a lot of women aren't really that accepting of their bodies and how society has played a role in that. So with, say, media, women portrayed in film and models and photography and that sort of thing, that the standard that they show of women's bodies are ones that for most of us are only attainable through under-eating or over-exercising. Basically, you have to develop a disorder to keep and maintain that kind of body image. As someone who has 2 daughters, I try really hard to display body positivity and show my children that I love my body and am not fixated on its appearance. At my age, at 37, I basically just do things to allow my body to function in the ways I want it to function. So I like crocheting, for instance, and for me that means I need to do exercises to strengthen my forearm muscles so that I don't injure myself again. Or I like to be able to pick up my children. I like to be able to work, and I have to sit at a desk to do that, so I have to do things to avoid developing pain. So a lot of my body movements and things are revolved around avoiding pain. They're not revolved around changing the way my body looks. It's something that I don't really have any control. I don't really have much control over the way my body looks, the size of it. It is pretty much at the whims of my chronic illness. So because of my chronic illness, I have been very underweight and I have been very overweight. I sort of just swing on this pendulum, and I spend most of my life trying to manage my illness, and therefore when my illness is managed, I tend to fall in the middle. But I can tell you that when I was very underweight, I was treated much more favorably than when I was very overweight. So society in general, I found personally, from my personal experience, that is more accepting of people who are very, very thin or who look like the people that you see in film and media. And unfortunately, even though I've tried very hard, like I said, to be very accepting of my body and to not be critical, I'll admit that I have also fallen victim to sort of the brainwashing. I think it's got to be from when we were children, having these images portrayed to us as the epitome of what women should look like. And so when I was very, very underweight, I found that it was the first time in my life, it was pretty much the only time in my life where I've ever been in my body and not had a critical thought about it. And that's because when I was that thin, I didn't have cellulite or saggy boobs or rolls on my belly, which are all very natural things that the majority of us have, but that we have been taught to see as flaws. And I remember thinking at that point, I was at the beach in a bikini, and I thought to myself, why can't I ever feel this accepting of my body and this free when I'm any size? Why is it only now that I am so underweight that I finally just don't think about my body? I was just enjoying my life. I wasn't thinking about it. I wasn't criticizing it. I wasn't even aware of it. I was just living. And it was very upsetting for me. Obviously, because of my illness, I didn't stay at that weight. To stay at that weight, I would have had to develop an eating disorder, and I was not willing to do that. But I remember how upsetting it was to realize that I had to fall prey to this mentality of believing that thinness is the ideal. It's just one of those things where I'm like, how can I avoid this? How can I stop this from happening to my daughters? But it's already something like in today's media, I am happy to see that there is some more diversity creeping in. We are seeing women with different bodies, different ethnicities, different ages as well, but it's still a minority. So it's very few. I literally woke up this morning and saw an article on the Melbourne Fashion Week show and how disappointed they were that they'd only include, I think there was only like 10 models in total that were either plus size or had disabilities, and how upsetting that was. And I'm like, yeah, why can't we just have everybody represented? Because also, I just, like I said, I feel like for most of us women, having that body type does require an eating disorder or an exercise addiction. It is not a natural weight for us to be. I know there are some who are naturally that size, but for most of us, it is not natural. And I would love for that to no longer be constantly shoved down our throats, because I think you just can't help be affected by it, to think, so even subconsciously, I should be looking like that. I thought this was great. And like I said, at 37, I still struggle with body acceptance. It's hard. This book did help remind me though of, like I said, all of the other things that our bodies do for us, not to fixate on the way they look. And for me personally, embodiment is something that I've had to learn in this life. I've always been very sort of disconnected from my body. I think that's a lot to do with my chronic illness and chronic pain. You sort of try to just remove yourself from your body. And so, but really, does that work for me? No, it did not work. So I've really tried to, ever since doing psilocybin, tried to sink in to this body, to really connect to it, to not be so disconnected. And for me, like they even talk about it in here, a lot of those practices include obviously breath work, things like yoga, things like meditation, conscious movement, just really being aware of all of my senses, because this body is here for us to be able to have an immersive experience. It enables us to be connected to senses and see and smell and feel and hear all of these things in this world that makes this ride so amazing. And it's not here for aesthetics. It has a function, it has a purpose. And yeah, I wish I could say like, oh, I completely love my body and I'm completely body positive and, you know, I love the way I look no matter what. But it's not the reality. I'm hoping for better for my daughters, but already, like, my eldest daughter has been bullied by other girls about her body shape, and that was really upsetting for me. To have it happen so early and so young. Obviously I try my best to talk to her about it and unpack it and tell her that other people's opinions about your body don't mean shit. Like, I really wish we would stop commenting on other people's bodies. It's just like a thing we don't need to do. We don't need to do, man. Unless it's your lover and you can say like, I fucking love your arms, your ass, your back, you're just delicious. That's the only time I'll be like, okay, comment on a body in a positive way. But otherwise keep your opinions to yourself. But this was great. It talks about also like the whole anti-aging fad. Yeah, I don't want to even talk about it, but like, yeah, the marketing of like, gotta stay young, you gotta look young. And no, bro. Each to their own. I know that some women want to do things like Botox and lifts and everything else. I think as long as it's not coming from a place of fear, you do you, boo. I personally am not going down that road. I want to just age as I age and allow my face to be my face, however it looks. And they also brought up that whole dress for your age saying, which I absolutely despise. It doesn't mean anything to me, dress for your age. What does that even mean? No, I believe that you should dress for fun, dress for comfort, dress for yourself. personally have had a lot of flack for that. This is something that people seem to really stick with. I've had people tell me that I don't dress appropriately for a mother. I'm like, well, that's just like your opinion, man. And I just like, we're all going to be dead. We're all just like weird spirits wearing flesh suits, walking around, adorning ourselves in some fabrics and colors. Like, why can't you just do what you want? That is the most ridiculous one for me, is the whole dress your age. Fuck off with that shit. Seriously. Seriously. Wear what you bloody want, man. If you want to walk around in a Yeti suit, do it. Like, if you want to wear tartan skirts with fishnet tights, bloody do it. Really, seriously, wear what you want. Have fun with it. Life's too short for this BS, these stupid rules. It does suck though, that how much is forced down our throat in terms of how we should dress, for our age, and how we should be focused on staying youthful and young and dyeing our hair and getting rid of wrinkles and keeping our bodies really thin and tiny. And I want to be just done with all of that. Fuck the patriarchy, and this does bring up that a lot of this was due to the male gaze and keeping yourself attractive for the male gaze. And I feel like we are, as a society, slowly edging away from that and embracing aging in whatever form that takes, and embracing, like I said, your body in whatever shape that takes. And yeah, and I hope that just continues. But like I said, I would love, though, more women in media, not being this one cookie cutter body type. I think that would be amazing. I think that will help further generations. Someone wrote this quote in a book about how and I'll see if I can find it and post it up here. I literally just heard someone else say it recently as well, and I thought it was an amazing quote. And yeah, I would just love for the future generations not to have this brainwashing that we've all had. Just be able to live and not look at our bodies with such a criticizing gaze. And like I said, as much as I try my best, that voice is still in here. It's still in there. Oh, I wish it would go away, but at least I know that I'm fortunate in that I don't listen to that voice and actually act upon its, messages. But I know for a lot of women, it's hard not to. Yeah, I think the older I get, though, the easier it is to ignore that voice and to be more comfortable with myself and my body. I still do things like suck my belly in when I go to the beach. At the moment, I still do that, but I'm like, okay, look, baby steps, lady. At least you're not full of self-loathing. You're not always wishing, I wish I could be thinner. I wish my boobs could be perkier. I wish my, eyelids could be less droopy, or whatever the hell it is. At least they're not running constantly around. But I thought this was a great book. Like I said, it did remind me just to focus on things that benefit me, things that make my body feel good. Like I said, with chronic illness and chronic pain, it's a little bit different. It's sort of like I'm always doing things to try and manage those things. But yeah, it's just another reminder to try and just enjoy my life. We weren't put in these bodies to hate them. We weren't put in these bodies to obsess over the way they look. They're tools for us to enjoy the pleasures of this world. And we've got to sort of get back to that a little bit more. But I did enjoy reading this book. The next book that I am going to read is The Moonday Letters by Emmi Itaranta. And I think this is like a dystopian sort of tale, but I'm interested to get started on that. And I am today going to go for a walk. So I'm trying to do some things to improve my well-being. Like I said, this book was really motivating for me to be like, hey, let's take care of this flesh bag a little bit more, and so that you can feel better. And walking is one of those things. I love going for walks. I just don't do them. I'm a creature of habit and a hermit. And so my natural instinct is to just stay inside, sit on a couch. I am a bit of a couch potato, but I must remember that I do have to move for health. That if I don't, I will end up suffering. Who wants to suffer if you don't have to suffer? So I'm going to go for a walk later. I'm actually going to go and get a massage today. I've decided to try and treat myself a little more if I can afford to. And for me, out of everything that I could do as a treat, getting a massage is what I like, because I find it very relaxing and comforting. And it's just not something that I can do for myself. I can't really massage myself. So I decided to go and do that today, not feel guilty about it. Because when I'm dead, there's no such thing as a massage. I'm not going to ever feel that again. So while, I live, you only live once, man. And massages are a favorite thing of mine. So I'm going to go get one. Okie dokie, so I read 50% of the Moonday Letters, A Journey Through Time and Space Where Earth's Future Hangs in the Balance by Emmi, Itaranta, and boy oh boy do I wish I had given up the goose way sooner than this. So basically you have Lumi and their spouse, who is they, them, named Sol, and she is trying to meet up with them, and they keep just making her go on this wild goose chase. And so the communication is done. This book is written in an epistolary manner where she is just writing letters to her spouse Sol. I really don't think it worked in this case. This was touted as a love story, but their relationship is just horrible. This person's Sol really doesn't respect her or care about her, because how you can make your spouse just follow you all the way around, not give them answers, keep them in the dark, is beyond me. She really is kept in the dark by her spouse. And I was just like, girl, leave them and do better. But unfortunately, no. So I decided after 50% to just read the ending. And boy, oh boy, am I glad that I did not persevere, because that ending is just like, are you kidding me with this shit? So basically, Lumi was from Earth, and now we exist in a future where people have colonies, humans have colonies on other planets. Her partner Sol is a Martian, and they live on Mars. Earth has been messed up catastrophically. This main theme of this book too is also eco-terrorism. But basically, you're just following Sol, who's following her spouse, trying to find them. And let's just say most of her endeavors are fruitless, and it was just becoming really frustrating to me. I can't imagine ever putting my partner through that. I would be honest and say, hey, this is what I'm up to. It's best that we're not together at this point. These are my reasons of why I've done this. After I've completed what I'm doing, we can talk about whether we want to continue our relationship. But no, they just, they string Lumi along. So it was very frustrating. And it's also the way it's written, I didn't like it. It's very, very slow. It is so slow. It's got this very languid energy about it, and I was not enjoying it. I thought it would be something that I'd be more interested, considering they were on different planets and things like that, but it bored my tits off. So that was the Moonday Letters. Before I go, I just want to show you my socks. So these are rainbow cat socks, and they make my day. It's the little things, guys. It's the little things. Hi, please excuse this little kink. My hair does what it wants, and it's decided to do this today, so we're rolling with it. I read 50% of Unmasking Autism by Dr. Devon Price, and I've decided to DNF it because I really don't like the writing. And with fiction books, if the writing sucks, the book sucks, because that's how they portray the information with the writing. And if you don't like the writing, you're not going to want to read the information. So I didn't like the writing. Also, I picked this book up because I wanted to learn more about autism, because I have autism. And this book was not really solely focused on autism. It was branching out into a lot of other different areas, including sex work. And I wasn't really looking for that. I just wanted to learn about this. So this was not the autism book for me. In regards to what I'm going to read next, I had planned on this being the last book that I read, because tomorrow my reading vlog for this week finishes, and I've already made the cover for this week's video. So I'm not going to pick up any other actual books that I'll talk about on the channel. I decided that I'm just going to read some more middle grade books to flesh out my kids segment that's coming up. So these are the two that I'm going to read. I'm not going to talk about them obviously on here anyway, so I am going to read these two as well. So I'll include them in the tally, but you won't see me discussing them anyway because they're kids' books. So that will be everything for this week. So I hope that wherever you are having a gorgeous morning, afternoon, or evening. And as always, stay wild, Star Child.